the description I've given local church, well, and pastors, but that I've given people is it's a very complicated jigsaw puzzle with pastors being pieces, pastors' families being pieces, local churches, conference needs being pieces. But at the end of the day, when you get it all pieced together, the picture you want people to see is Jesus.
Hello, this is Pastor Terry Goodman, and I want to welcome you to the Wesleyan Connection. This podcast is primarily for the clergy and laity of the Holston Annual Conference. Join with me now as I take a look around the Connection and share some of the things happening in the churches of our annual conference. Welcome to Monday Morning with the DS. Today is a very special edition, I think, of the series. As you know, I've been talking with district superintendents and sharing their conversations on Monday mornings for the past few weeks now. But this week is a special week within our annual conference in the sense that it is appointment-making week. The district superintendents, the bishop, they're gathered together and they are discussing our annual conference, the pastors, the churches, the needs of what has to happen in order to help our annual conference do the things that it needs to do, from the local church to the pastor to the conference. Sort of confusing there, isn't it? Well, I guess that's sort of what this week is about as well. It's sort of confusing. Imagine trying to put everything in place. During my interview with Charles, I had an opportunity right in the middle of the interview, toward the end. He began to talk about the appointment-making process. And I thought, well, even though it's the last part of the interview in terms of when it was recorded, I decided that I was going to put that part of the interview first, because this is appointment-making week, and I think you need to hear what Charles has to say, because you need to understand what the bishop and the cabinet does when they go through this process of getting the right ministers together with the right churches and all the other needs of the annual conference balanced out. It's a monumental task. And so I encourage you just to listen with an open mind when you hear Charles describe the process that he is now in his 6th year of doing. So enjoy this conversation this morning. Come back next week and hear about what's happening in the Maryville district in terms of some of its ministries. But today, it's appointment-making time in Holston, and I want you to hear what Charles has to say about that process. We've talked about sort of your district responsibilities, but you also have a connection with the annual conference as a district superintendent.
True.
How would you describe that connection? What's your function and role in that area?
Well, and I think the position I have is a little unique in the fact that the physical office space is actually in the conference office building, and so consequently, I think I get invited to be parts of things on the conference level that some of my colleagues don't necessarily. But it makes more sense. I'm closer. It keeps somebody from having to drive up from Chattanooga or down from Tazewell or something like that. Now, that being said, every superintendent is assigned to certain conference work, so that all the conference work is spread out, so that there's a superintendent that sits on the pensions board. There's a superintendent. In my case, I sit on finance administration, archives and history, and communications. So those are conference responsibilities that you have in addition to whatever you're doing in the local church. But also, I think appointment making is a conference responsibility. You do it together as a group. It's not just an individual. I don't just get to take care of Maryville and not have to worry about everybody else.
So this will be the 6th year you've done that, or 5th?
This will be the 6th year.
Has it changed in 6 years? Is it harder, or is it easier? Is it about the same?
Appointment making?
Yes, it's always difficult.
Yeah, it is. It's very. It's the thing that it's one of the things that keeps me up at night. I mean, just that responsibility of it. I think it's changed. The first year was just. I just thought it was horrible, but it's not the process. It's not. In other words, it wasn't that was bad. It was learning how to be a part of that.
Because you're representing the pastor and his or her needs, the church and its needs, the annual conference and its needs.
That's right.
And
that's right. And
you're
trying to
balance
all of those.
And I imagine that each year, it's not like let's go and do this again like we did last year, because each year everything is different.
It is. The description I've given local church, and pastors, but that I've given people is, it's a very complicated jigsaw puzzle, with pastors being pieces, pastors' families being pieces, local churches, conference needs being pieces. But at the end of the day, when you get it all pieced together, the picture you want people to see is Jesus, and that's what you're after. It's not necessarily that everybody gets to be ecstatic about the way this works out, but what you're after is the kingdom. Mm-hmm. And you try to do your best. And one of the delightful surprises to me, and you have to think, I've gotten to work with 2 bishops in 6 years, and both, this has been a priority for both, but every cabinet meeting starts with an hour of prayer and Bible study and singing and worship. Every cabinet meeting. So it doesn't matter. So, for instance, the week that we're doing appointments, we're together sometimes 5 to 6 days. Every morning starts that way. So it's not like, okay, good, we got that out of the way Monday, we don't have to do it again.
We'll close out on Friday.
Every morning starts that way. When the extended cabinet meets, that happens. When the appointment cabinet meets, every single one, and we take turns, doing that, leading.
Thank you for sharing that, because I'm not sure that most folks in the annual conference would have realized that's how you begin the hard work that you do.
I mean, we spend a lot of time of that hour. We spend a good part of it simply remembering people.
Thank you for remembering me last year.
I was going to say, you were on the list. You've been on and when you had surgery last
January.
And that's just what each one of us brings. Okay, here's my list. Here's who I'm praying for every day. But we all do it. And so, I think that was one of the, it shouldn't have been a surprise, but I think it was a pleasant surprise of, this is a great way to start every time we gather.
We're leaving space for God to come into our midst as we gather for this. Yeah.
And of course, I mean, there are moments, especially appointment making, there are moments when the bishop will simply say, okay, we need to take a break. We all need to think about this. We all need to pray. And there have been moments that we get news in the middle of a meeting that's heartbreaking, or that something has happened, and we need to have a family, and we quit and do that. So I mean, that's a great thing, I think. But again, it's how we look after each other and take care of each other in that. So I guess your original question was, how has it changed? I think it has changed for me, but I think it's more of an internal thing for me than it is an external function. The process hasn't changed all that much. It's just how I handle it, I think, has been. And of course, when you've been in a district 6 years, you know local churches, you know a lot of lay people a lot better than you did your first year. You know pastors. I think I had an advantage coming to this job that I had been on the conference staff with camping for 7 years. So my job there took me all over the conference, And there were oftentimes I'd be in district meetings in, 6 districts in 1 month. I'd be in 6 different district meetings. And so consequently, I got to know more pastors than you would if you had just been serving in a local church somewhere. So I think that gave me, I don't want to say an advantage. I think it just was a good way that I got to know more people.
If Pastor X is brought up by DS
Yeah.
Y, you'll go, oh, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. And I think that helped. It helped me, but also there were moments that I could help other people say, oh, well, because I perhaps would know a connection or something like that. Now, you look at the cabinet, I mean, a lot of us have been in our jobs for a while, and so I think everybody comes to know more and more people as you're in it longer.
Well, I thank you for sharing with me. I've got 2 questions I want to end with. The first question is this. What is the passion that drives you to be in ministry? What is that burning thing within you that makes you do the things you do for the kingdom?
That's a good question. Well, I've had a rather checkered career, checkered past, but I think there has been, I think, connecting people with the kingdom. But for me, that has been lived out in connecting one-on-one people with the kingdom, but also connecting people with the creation. And so, and seeing just our part in creation and our part together in creation. So it's not so much of you ought to go out, Terry, and walk in the woods by yourself sometime. It's not that kind of a connection as much as just understanding the wonder of it all and how you and me are part of that wonder. And so I guess that's part of what gets me up in the morning, soothes me at night.
All right.
Final
question.
Yeah.
What is your favorite dessert?
Oh, gee. See, I'm an equal opportunity dessert eater.
I've found quite a few of those since I've been asking this question.
Yeah. My favorite dessert. Wow. Because, see, I'm like, I've never met a cookie I don't like, pie, cake.
I say I've never met anything with sugar in it that I don't like.
Yeah. It's,
Can we narrow the categories down? Is it a cookie? Is it a cake? Is it a pie?
I really like cake.
Okay, so it's a cake.
I like white cake with white icing.
White cake.
So like a wedding cake.
Oh,
I love wedding cakes, but I'd say that's one of my favorites. But like I say, I'm an equal dessert
Opportunity dessert eater.
Yes, I'm a very equal opportunity.
Well, I appreciate your open and honest response to that question.
That's why I'm glad this is not a viewed interview, because people could look at me and say, oh, yeah, he obviously likes desserts.
Not as much as I do, if we're going for the visuals. Well, thank you for sharing with me. I appreciate that, and wish you the best, and I'll be praying for you in the cabinet as you pray for us.
Thanks.
This is Pastor Goodman. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Wesleyan Connection. Be sure to check back often for more podcasts.